I personally built her into a Magnolia award-winning actress. As her husband and manager, I was then viciously smeared by her and the entire internet. She manufactured a PR romance with her first love for a career boost and handed me divorce papers. What she didn't know was that the moment I chose to let go, a system granted me elite status and immense power. Her cruelty was the final test of my mission. After successfully winning her over, I chose to stay. The system's final offer gave me only two options: leave this world or remain here permanently. I decided to stay, watching her transform from an unknown actress into one of Hollywood's most sought-after stars. The day she finally hit the big time, the ex who had callously dumped her came crawling back, full of regret. Then, without warning, a single sheet of paper, a divorce agreement, turned me, the man behind the movie star, into an industry punchline. She and her team even planned to use a single photograph to deliver a fatal blow, ensuring I would never work in this town again. She had no idea that the moment I chose to stay, the system had given me a golden touch as a reward. First, congratulations to Ava for winning this year's Magnolia Award for Best Actress. A huge congratulations. On stage, the special guest presenter for the Magnolia Awards solemnly announced the winner. Watching her stand confidently in the spotlight, draped in an elegant black gown, I felt a surge of pride as her husband and manager. Ava, the woman I'd worked so hard to win over, my wife, was now holding that coveted trophy. I had poured every ounce of my being into her career, transforming her from a C-list nobody, dismissed by A-listers, into the dazzling star she was today. For 5 years, she was like a delicate, fragile flower, and I had meticulously nurtured her. I spent countless sleepless nights terrified that one small mistake could lead to an irreversible disaster. Ava was naturally sensitive. A single negative comment online could leave her sobbing and breathless. For 5 years, I shielded her from every injustice, every baseless rumor. I took all the hits, intercepted every attack, and made a lot of enemies in the process. I absorbed all the emotional damage for her, slowly building her into the confident, cool-headed queen she appeared to be today. So when I, the man who had so carefully tended to her, finally proposed, she accepted as if it were the most natural thing in the world. My mission was, for all intents and purposes, complete. But for the sake of her career, we kept our marriage a secret, completely hidden from the public eye. As I watched her walk to the podium, I remembered what she'd told me before she left the house. She said she had a surprise for me tonight. Ava smiled sweetly on stage, her flawless features magnified on the giant screen behind her. I let out a long breath and opened the system's interface, ready to claim my reward. The cold, digital screen slowly loaded. Mission completion reward, the golden touch. Mission settlement in progress. Leave or stay permanently. I glanced up at Ava, her eyes glistening with tears under the stage lights. Without a moment's hesitation, I chose to stay. At that exact moment, Ava began her acceptance speech. Her voice thick with emotion, she said, "Thank you to all my fans who have supported me through the years. You never left, even at my lowest point, and you've been with me every step of the way. Thank you to the entire cast and crew for your tireless work, and to all our sponsors and partners." She paused, catching her breath. "And I want to thank myself for falling time and again, but never giving up, which is the only reason I'm standing here today. I want to say to all the young women out there working hard, only when you become strong enough can you truly choose the life you want. Don't waste your best years on people and things that aren't worth it. Wasting even a moment on someone who is beneath you is a tragedy. You always deserve better. I love you all." My chest tightened, and I froze completely. For a second, I forgot all about the system's reward. A few moments later, my phone rang. It was Ava. Her voice was soft, laced with a cheerful tone. "James, the producer, George, and the executives from the studio and the agency are all taking me to the after party. You can just head home." I always used to accompany her to these events. It was the perfect opportunity to network for her next project. But now, she was telling me to go home alone. Before I could even ask why, She added casually, "Oh, and some paparazzi just snapped a photo of me getting into Mr. Sullivan's car. Take care of it for me." With that, she hung up. The line had barely gone dead when an unknown number called. I answered instinctively. After only a few words, I knew exactly who it was. The paparazzo who had taken the photo. The caller identified himself as a reporter from Point Blank Media. He said he had more than just a shot of Ava getting into the executive's car. He had crystal clear photos of her inside, wrapped intimately in Mr. Sullivan's arms. The man's hand was clamped on her slender waist, while his other roamed her thigh. Ava's eyes were hazy, her cheeks flushed, and one of her delicate hands rested on Mr. Sullivan's neck. The paparazzo wanted $5 million for the photos, or he'd leak them to every outlet on Monday morning. As the images loaded one by one in my inbox, my mind reeled. I stared at the screen, desperately trying to invent some plausible misunderstanding to explain them away. I fought back the rage boiling in my chest and forced myself to think clearly. Whatever the truth was, even if they were fakes used for blackmail, this couldn't wait. It had to be handled immediately. I submitted an urgent request to the agency for $5 million from our public relations fund. I then called the vice president of talent, explaining the photos away as an optical illusion caused by a tricky camera angle. I stressed that if we didn't kill the story now, the fallout for Ava and the agency would be catastrophic. By the time I was done, the clock on the wall read 1 a.m., and Ava still wasn't home. I picked up my phone, about to send her an iMessage to ask if she needed a ride, when I saw an unread text from her. "I left a surprise for you in the left drawer of the study. Go take a look and sign it." A terrible feeling washed over me. I walked into the study and pulled open the drawer. Inside was a neat stack of papers with a sticky note on top. The 2 words on the cover page made my blood pressure skyrocket. Divorce agreement. The note was in Ava's handwriting. "With you, it was always more gratitude than love. This marriage isn't fair to you, and for me, it's been a torment. I've achieved my dream, and you've become a top agent at the company. We've both come so far in our careers. Divorcing now is the best release for both of us, especially for a couple who had to keep their marriage a secret." I set down the self-righteous note and let out a bitter laugh. Over 5 years of companionship, of sleepless nights by her side, over a year as her husband in name only. All for the star I had single-handedly and painstakingly built. And in the end, all I was to her was something to be released from. I admit I wasn't perfect, and I was never her dream husband. But we were married. We were supposed to be partners, for better or for worse. Our entire history shouldn't be dismissed so abruptly with a stack of papers and a cheap sticky note. It was as if our entire journey together meant nothing. From our early days in college to the chaos of Hollywood, Ava was the first and only client I ever managed. When I first received the mission from the system, I had no idea who Ava was. The film school at NYU was teeming with talent and beautiful women. Even a delicate beauty like Ava didn't particularly stand out in a crowd. I asked the system why she, of all people, was my target. The system's only reply was a cold, robotic selection was random. To escape the system's control, I had no choice but to grit my teeth and create an opportunity to meet her. Luckily, I didn't have to wait long. You could even call it fortunate. One day, in an empty study hall, I heard the quiet, suppressed sobs of a young woman. It felt like the beginning of a horror movie, and just like the dumb protagonist, I let my curiosity get the better of me and went to see what was going on. The first thing I saw was Ava's tear-streaked face. The sight of it hit me like a punch to the gut. She sensed me approaching, startled, and quickly wiped her eyes. "I'm sorry," she stammered. I thought I was alone. I scratched my head and pointed to my laptop bag. "I have to pull an all-nighter for a project, and I figured the power wouldn't go out in here. Didn't mean to disturb you." She nodded, then haltingly began to explain. "Rehearsal was just so hard today. I couldn't get the timing right, and I knew she was embarrassed, so I quickly changed the subject. "Oh, you're in the acting program? I'm in directing. I got a project due tomorrow." And just like that, an awkward encounter slowly turned into a real conversation. Because I had successfully made contact with a target on my own, the system took pity on me. The next morning, it sent me her complete background file. That's when I finally understood why she had been crying in the study hall. The reason was Ethan. Ethan Vance, the biggest pop idol in the country. The same Ethan who refused to publicly admit that Ava was his childhood sweetheart. His label wanted him to generate buzz by faking a relationship with a co-star. And when Ava couldn't accept it, he broke up with her, clean and simple. This was the third time Ethan had broken up with her. They'd made a rule. They could fight, but the word breakup could only be used 3 times, ever. The first 2 times were for laughable reasons. Once because his agency demanded he maintain a single image, and another time because his schedule was too packed and he was too tired for a relationship. In the end, he chose his career. He pushed Ava away with a smile, casting her aside like a burden. All he left her with was a breezy, "We're done," before vanishing from her life completely. Her grief was palpable. The sight of her tear-stained face was enough to break your heart. But secretly, I was thrilled. This was the perfect opening. A vulnerable, abandoned woman just waiting for someone to come and pick up the pieces. A sharp ping from my phone snapped me out of my reverie. It was an iMessage from Ava, short and to the point. "Have you signed the divorce papers? The asset settlement is the best you're going to get." I sighed, my fingers flying across the screen. "Where are you? We need to talk about this in person." She replied almost instantly, her tone frigid. "Talk about what? If you're unhappy with the settlement, take it up with my lawyer." A moment later, she sent a new contact card with a single word: lawyer. The whole calculated sequence of events actually made me laugh. This wasn't some impulsive decision. She had been planning this for a long time. And if that was the case, there was no reason for me to keep up the charade. I didn't text her back. Instead, I opened the system interface, activated my golden touch, and began to study its functions. Ava didn't come home for days, so I packed my bags and moved out. I still had to stop by the agency, Starlight Media Group, to tie up some loose ends. The $5 million for the photo buyout had been approved, but the amount was so large it required multiple sign-offs. Even with my colleague David rushing it, the wire transfer hadn't gone through yet. When I got to the office, I handed in my resignation, officially stepping down as Ava's manager. David was visibly stunned. Just a few nights ago, I was working around the clock to kill that story for her. Now that she'd just won the Magnolia, it was supposed to be our moment to conquer the industry. No one knew Ava and I were married, and I had no intention of making things more complicated by revealing it now. It would only interfere with my future plans. So when David asked me why I was leaving, I just gave him a simple, "I'm burned out." Seeing I wouldn't elaborate, David didn't push it. He quickly arranged for someone to take over my duties and told me to get some rest. He said that with my track record, if I ever wanted to come back, building another star from the ground up would be easy for me. I smiled and thanked him politely. The moment I walked out of the Starlight Media Group building, a massive weight lifted from my shoulders. I felt almost light enough to float. 4 or 5 years, I had gone from being the campus doormat to Ava's exclusive manager and secret husband. To complete the system's mission, I had erased my own identity, living as a shadow of my former self. Then, another iMessage from Ava came through. "Why haven't you handled the photos? Even if we're getting a divorce, this is still your job. Don't you have any professional ethics left?" I could practically hear her condescending tone through the screen. It was laughable, but not surprising. To people like her, a doormat is always a doormat. Even as her boyfriend, even as her husband, I was never anything more than a subordinate who existed only to serve her. It was a shame. I really had been captivated by her once, and I had given her my all. But I was never so far gone that I'd sacrifice my life and dignity for her. I texted back, "I've resigned. Someone else will be handling your affairs from now on." She didn't respond. I had no idea if the handover went smoothly or if the paparazzo tried to jack up the price. All I knew was that on Monday morning, the scandalous photos of Ava and the investor were plastered across every entertainment news site. She called me immediately, her voice trembling with rage. "Just because I'm divorcing you, you resort to these disgusting tactics to ruin my career?" I replied calmly, "Why don't you ask your new manager?" Ava's voice rose to a shriek. James, you're a coward. You call yourself a man? You were handling this from the start. Don't you know perfectly well why those photos got out? I was losing my patience. I told you I don't know. If you have suspicions, have your new manager investigate. If you really think it was me, then sue me. I don't have time for your hysterics. I hung up, cutting off her shrill screaming. The internet, as usual, delivered its verdict long before the truth came out. After the photos leaked, a war broke out between Ava's fans and the general public. One fan commented, "She was at a business dinner. Sharing a car with an investor is perfectly normal, right?" Someone immediately shot back. Sharing a car is one thing, but did she have to be sitting on his lap? The fan tried again. "The lighting is terrible. It could have been the angle." Another comment destroyed that argument. What angle? Their clothes are practically intertwined. Unless she was levitating, she was on his lap. Soon, the conversation shifted. Fans started asking, "She just won a major award and this gets leaked? Is her manager completely useless?" Yeah. Where's her manager? The manager needs to get out here and take the heat for this. Before long, all the anger was directed at one phrase: managerial negligence. Suddenly, I, who had always remained in the shadows, was thrust into the spotlight. As the speculation grew, Ava's official, verified studio account released a formal statement. The statement was deliberately vague. It mentioned that Ava's former manager had resigned abruptly, leading to a potentially incomplete handover of duties and possible failure to return certain materials. It concluded by reserving the right to take legal action against slanderers. In short, it expertly pinned everything on me. It didn't mention me by name, but the implication was clear. In their narrative, the person responsible for the scandal was the recently departed ex-manager, me. Within minutes of the statement going live, my social media accounts were completely overwhelmed by her fans and the angry mob. Her fans began to invent their own narrative. They claimed I had made unreasonable demands, and when Ava refused, I retaliated by leaking the photos out of spite before quitting. But a few rational people started piecing the facts together. One of them sent me a message. "If you're innocent, you should release the handover documents to prove it." I had no desire to get into a public war with Ava. We'd had enough conflict over the years. But this wasn't about our relationship anymore. This was an attack on my professional integrity. So I compiled the handover documents and posted them online, unedited. The final entry was crystal clear. It detailed the $5 million PR payment, its explicit purpose to buy out photos, and the grace period the paparazzo had granted for the delayed payment. The documents went viral instantly. The comments poured in. "Wow, being a paparazzo pays well. $5 million for a few photos? Celebrities must be loaded if their managers are dropping $5 million on a single story." Ava was now in the hot seat, and her fans couldn't take it. They rushed to her defense. Who knows if these documents are even real? My uncle runs a small business, and his paperwork isn't this formal, right? And if he really paid $5 million, why did the photos still get leaked? Sounds like someone pocketed the cash. But while her fans spun wild theories, more rational users pointed out the obvious. The document has an official company seal, a signature, and a date. If that's forged, this isn't just online drama, it's a felony. Another comment was even more blunt. Instead of blaming the ex-manager, maybe you should be asking the new one. It's possible Starlight leaked the photos themselves for publicity. They have a new reality show starting, with Ava mentoring a bunch of rookies. You fans are just giving them free promotion, getting played, and you don't even see it. Sure enough, Starlight Media Group soon announced the cast for its new project. Besides Ava, it was a lineup of complete unknowns. Hashtags like hashtag Starlight Scandal and hashtag AvaStage Marketing shot to the top of Twitter's trending topics. The new Magnolia winner was making headlines not for her talent, but for a sleazy photo in a car. The online uproar grew, and soon enough, David and Ava's new manager showed up at my door. "I've seen what's happening online," David began as soon as he walked in. "Ultimately, this is a failure of my oversight. I'm sorry you're taking so much heat." Even though I'd quit, David still had that same calm, composed demeanor. The new manager next to him, however, was busy looking around my modest, temporary apartment. I smiled. You have more to worry about than my reputation. Ava just won Magnolia. If her personal life spirals, it's going to tank her commercial value. I cut straight to the point to save him the trouble. The new manager glanced at me, then at David, before speaking slowly. That's why we were hoping you would issue a clarification. All you have to do is say the photo was just Ava rehearsing a scene for a new project with an investor, and that a crew member accidentally leaked a behind-the-scenes still. I cut him off. You're the ones who held back the $5 million, aren't you? You deliberately delayed the payment to generate buzz for your new project, creating the opportunity for the photos to leak. The online commenters had nailed it. This was Starlight's standard playbook: create a scandal, leak the story, and ride the wave of controversy to promote a project. As her manager, I had spent years blocking these exact kinds of schemes, shielding her from one scandal marketing campaign after another. I did it so she could stand on that stage, clean and untarnished, and talk about achieving her dreams. Clearly, the moment she cut me loose, they knew I was no longer there to protect her. Starlight had always planned to use their new Best Actress to launch their next batch of rookies. David's expression darkened. He glanced around my small apartment again. I don't know what happened between you and Ava, but it looks like she didn't leave you with many options. The new manager jumped in. If you cooperate, we can give you $5 million. At least then you won't have to live in a place like this. $5 million. That number again. It seemed to be my lucky number. I laughed. $5 million? No, thank you. I shook my head and pushed the check David was holding out back toward him. Ava needs to take responsibility for her own actions, and your agency's shameless tactics need to have consequences. The meeting ended badly. I thought that would be the end of it, but a new storm was already brewing online. Ethan Vance, using his official account, retweeted the video of Ava's acceptance speech. He tagged her and added a caption: "You've weathered the storm. I know the hardships you've faced better than anyone." The interaction between the former heartthrob and the new Best Actress nearly crashed Twitter servers. Fans flooded the comments, digging for any connection between them. It didn't take long for them to discover that the two had been classmates at NYU. A fan asked in the replies, "Were you two really classmates?" Ethan himself responded, "Yes, we were. I was also the one who helped recommend her new manager the night this all went down." The comments section exploded. Best Actress abandoned by manager after win shot to the top of the trending list. I scrolled through the comments, laughing along with everyone else. And that's when I realized the real reason for the divorce wasn't about release or fairness. She was getting back together with her first love. The internet worked faster than I could have imagined. An army of shippers instantly materialized, creating forums and fan pages dedicated to this single couple. They dug up every interaction from their NYU days, culminating in the story of how Ethan had swooped in to save her during her darkest hour. Before long, the fans had constructed an entire romantic epic. Ethan's career took off early, and at his peak, their love cooled due to distance, but the flame never truly died. Years later, they meet again, one a new Best Actress, the other a former national icon. Looking back from the heights of their success, they realize they've always held a special place for each other in their hearts. But with their different responsibilities, they could only love each other from afar. Then this scandal struck. She was betrayed by a malicious ex-manager, left isolated and helpless. When the whole world turned against her, only Ethan stood up, using his own reputation and resources to shield her from the storm. This tragic star-crossed lover narrative they'd invented was so well-crafted, I almost wanted to applaud. The only thing they didn't know was that their wrongfully accused damsel in distress was, at this very moment, still legally married. At least, according to the county clerk's office, Ava's marital status was still married. As I was enjoying the show, my phone rang. I stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows of my new penthouse apartment, answered the call from my new assistant, and said calmly, "Yes, we can begin." Starlight and Ava's team quickly pivoted their PR strategy. Soon after, an anonymously uploaded audio clip appeared online. It started with David's voice. "I know all about what's happening online." Then came my voice. "Of course you should be concerned. Ava just won a Magnolia. If her private life turns into another scandal, it will destroy her commercial value. Then David again. So we're hoping you'll issue a clarification. That was followed by the sound of my laugh, and then my voice. 5 million? Ava should pay the price for her own actions. The recording had been doctored. The beginning and end were cut, twisting Starlight's attempt to bribe me into a confession that I had orchestrated the entire thing. The situation devolved into a full-blown melodrama. Fans and critics were at each other's throats, and conspiracy theories flew wildly. Meanwhile, I, the supposed villain of the piece, simply blocked Ava, David, and everyone else from Starlight and vanished completely. The fans went wild with speculation. That proves it. He ran because he's guilty. This is terrifying. He was by her side for so long. Who knows what other dirt he has on her? A few loyalists try to hold the line. This is obviously edited. It has nothing to do with her. Has anyone called the cops? This is blackmail. He could get years for this. Everyone, help gather evidence. We have to bring him to justice. We need to find out his motive. Soon, a forum thread titled, "What was his motive?" went viral, racking up over 50,000 replies filled with increasingly wild theories. I wasn't worried. The people who should have been worried were them. The Asia-Pacific director for a major international luxury brand had taken an interest in Ava's commercial appeal and reached out with an endorsement offer. But the contract had one non-negotiable clause. The brand ambassador had to be single. This clause caught Ethan, who was busy fanning the flames of their rekindled romance, completely by surprise. It left Ava, who was just waiting for my signature on the divorce papers, utterly dumbfounded. And David, who was already mentally calculating the profits from this massive deal, was rendered speechless. "You're married? You're actually married?" David's roar echoed through his office. Thanks to my golden touch, every word they spoke at the Starlight offices was perfectly clear, as if they were shouting right into my ear. The sound was so loud I instinctively rubbed my ears. Ava cowered on the sofa. "Yes," she whispered. "We haven't finalized the divorce yet." David was livid. "Who is he? Who else knows? Tell me everything, right now." Ava hesitated for a moment before finally saying my name. "You know him. It's James." David froze. "Wait, your manager?" Ava nodded. "Yes, I knew him before I was famous. He was so good to me back then. He pursued me for a long, long time. He helped me in so many ways." Ava began to spill the whole story. "He went with me to every single audition, from one studio to the next. He never gave up, no matter how slim the chances were. To get me my first role, he went out drinking with producers, spent a fortune, and practically forced them to cast me. I was so naive back then. I thought that after everything he'd done for me, marrying him was the least I could do to repay him. Later, when he got a job as a manager at Starlight, he brought me along with him." She suddenly grabbed David's shirt, her eyes wide with panic. "But nobody knows. My family doesn't know, and he has no parents, no relatives. The only other person who knows is my financial lawyer, and he signed a strict NDA. He would never talk. David, please, you have to help me. I really want this brand deal. Find James for me. I'll give him more money, whatever it takes, as long as he signs the papers quickly." David ran a hand through his thinning hair in frustration. No wonder he wasn't interested in $5 million to take the fall. "You haven't even finalized your own divorce. Are you an idiot? Why didn't you just keep him happy for a little longer? You could have crushed him after the divorce was final. A man in his position would have been easy to handle." The panic on Ava's face intensified. The photo leak was so sudden, I didn't have time to react. David, who had orchestrated the leak himself, was momentarily speechless. He sighed. "We planned for everything. Everything except that you two were actually married." David suppressed his anger. "Whatever. You need to handle him, and fast." And that whole romance narrative with Ethan shut it down. The brand's single clause applies for the entire contract period. Your relationship status has to be spotless. Ava froze for a second, but her hesitation was brief. Between her career and her supposed great love, she chose her career. She nodded blankly and agreed to David's terms. I swung my golf club, watching the ball sail in a perfect arc toward the distant green. A smile played on my lips. Ava used to despise people like Ethan, people who would sacrifice love for their career. It was his constant prioritizing of his career that had driven her, in a fit of spite, to marry me in the first place. And now, here she was, casting Ethan aside for her own ambition, becoming the very person she once claimed to hate. As their secret meeting concluded, David asked one last time, "Is there anything else you're hiding from me?" Ava shook her head. "I've lived my life in the public eye since day one. James always said it was good for my image. For years, my every move has been documented. There's nothing left to hide." David nodded, left Ava's apartment, and went straight to Ethan's manager's office. They spoke behind closed doors for a long time and came to an agreement. They would pull back the paid online trolls and suppress all the Ethan and Ava shipping content. For now, the romance angle was dead. In the month leading up to the luxury brand's final decision, Ava tried everything she could think of to find me. But I'd already left my temporary apartment, and she had no idea how to contact the few distant relatives I had. She couldn't find me. She even resorted to sending a flood of long, rambling emails to the old address I'd given her back in that study hall at NYU. They were filled with words like regret, "I miss you," and "please come back." What she didn't know was that I was living in a penthouse directly across the street from the Starlight building. From my window, I had a perfect view of a corner of David's office. I watched as she slowly unraveled in that very room. A week later, just as Ava was reaching her breaking point, a new email appeared in her inbox. It contained a single video file, the complete, unedited footage of my meeting with David and the new manager in my old apartment. It was unedited, with clear audio, a stark contrast to the doctor clip they had leaked. The slanderous audio was revealed to be completely taken out of context. Ava wasn't stupid. She knew exactly what I wanted without me having to type a single word. I wanted her to clear my name herself. The terms were simple. All she had to do was post the full video on her official Twitter account, proving I hadn't blackmailed her or leaked anything. The scandal would die instantly. But she also knew that if she did, Starlight would drop her. Ethan, the new manager, and everyone else who had sided with her would be dragged down with her. And that's exactly what I wanted. For her to agonize over every choice, to be tormented by the potential consequences. One wrong move, and she would fall from the pedestal I had built for her and shatter. Everything I had given her, including this direct line to the world of high fashion, was now laid bare before her, a tantalizing prize. After weighing her options, Ava chose to terminate her contract with Starlight and form her own studio. Of course, this termination was just a formality. Her new studio was still contractually bound to Starlight, operating as a subsidiary in all but name. Late on the night the paperwork was finalized, Ava logged into her verified Twitter account and posted the video. Her post sent the platform into a frenzy. Engineers scrambled to add more servers and throttle traffic to keep the site from crashing. This time, the fans were furious. They turned on Starlight, accusing the agency of exploiting Ava. They used a sleazy photo to create a scandal, promoting their new show and rookies while dragging the manager who built her career through the mud. Her longtime fans, who had been silent until now, finally spoke up in my defense. "We've been following her since the beginning. We know how important James was. Without him fighting for her, she never would have been cast in Director Miller's film. She wouldn't have even had a debut. Every project after that, James was the one building her network and keeping her relevant. You wouldn't even know who Ava was without him. I never believed James leaked those photos. Now we have the truth. It was Starlight all along." Other rational voices chimed in. "Has Ava booked any new roles since winning the Magnolia? All we see are photos of her at dinner parties with executives. Her old manager used to shield her from those sleazy industry events. Now, judging by these photos, she seems right at home. Maybe she and her manager had a falling out over creative differences right after she won." That actually sounds plausible. Then, the questions turned to Ethan. So what was Ethan's involvement in all this? Was he just trying to cash in on the drama? Ethan's fans fired back instantly. "Cash in on her? Our guy doesn't need her for clout. Get it straight who's using whom." Soon, a three-way war erupted between Ethan's fans, Ava's fans, and the general public. As the situation spiraled, Ava was forced to issue another statement, this time a long post explaining our split. My professional relationship with James ended peacefully when our contract expired, she wrote. The subsequent leak of inappropriate photos was the unfortunate result of a disagreement with my new management. I'm deeply sorry for all the public attention this has drawn, and I hope we can all now focus on my upcoming work. Simultaneously, Starlight released its own statement. It blamed the incident on the new manager's error, clarified that Ava's new studio would maintain a deep partnership with them, and announced that Ava's future focus would be on the international fashion world and high-end brand endorsements. With that flurry of PR, the messy public drama finally seemed to be over. The final nail in the coffin was Ethan quietly deleting all of his related posts and unfollowing Ava. Seeing that peace had been restored, I happily signed the divorce agreement and mailed it back. I didn't ask for a dime more than I was owed. I took my legal half and left the rest. After the mandatory waiting period, Ava and I went to the county clerk's office to finalize everything. She was disguised from head to toe, and when the clerk handed her the final decree, she let out a visible sigh of relief. She held out her hand. "You'll always be my James," she said. I didn't take it. I just glanced at the smiling eyes hidden behind her sunglasses. Congratulations on getting back with Ethan. Good luck. She didn't deny it. Instead, she looked over at Ethan, who was waiting for her in a car nearby, and her smile grew even brighter. And that was the beginning of my real revenge. Since they had failed to destroy me, they had better be prepared for me to destroy them. I called my new assistant. "It's time," I said. That same day, the executives from the luxury brand arrived in Los Angeles. Ava, dressed to the nines, attended a formal dinner with them. For those few hours, she was completely offline. And in the time she was disconnected, a post about Ava's secret marriage began to quietly circulate online. It started with her college romance with Ethan, then detailed how she, in a fit of spite, had secretly gotten married, only to be built into a star by her manager, winning awards and walking red carpets. There were no photos, but the details were so specific and the timeline so precise that it was hard not to believe it was true. Someone commented on the post, "Any NYU alumni here who can confirm? Were Ethan and Ava actually a couple back then?" That comment was like a floodgate. A wave of NYU alumni appeared. One of them, posting anonymously, replied, "Can't say they were officially dating. Ethan's career blew up his freshman year, so he couldn't have admitted it even if they were. Not sure of the exact details, but they were definitely childhood sweethearts. I don't know what happened after that." The post concluded. Another person added, "I remember hearing that Ava used to cry alone in empty classrooms all the time. We never knew why." This matches the story of how she met her ex-husband perfectly. Then, another alumnus wrote, "Wow, based on this timeline, I think I know who her ex-husband is." After that bombshell, the commenter vanished, leaving everyone else in a frenzy. The speculation about their college romance died down, and all attention shifted to one person, the mysterious ex-husband. Meanwhile, Ava finished her dinner with the brand executives. They had verbally agreed to discuss the proposal further the next day. She headed home feeling confident and relaxed. But by the time she got there, a new hashtag was at the top of the trending list. Hashtag Ava dumped secret husband for fame. Ethan's fan base, which had been quiet, erupted. They launched an all-out attack on Ava, telling the shippers to wake up and stop, using our Ethan to boost her career. But the shippers, who had worked so hard to find their evidence, weren't about to give up. They doubled down, digging through old Instagram and Facebook posts, searching for any trace of an early interaction between the two. Soon, they had compiled lists of evidence, matching outfits, coincidental check-ins at the same locations. "I knew they were real," one wrote. Back then, Ethan was too famous to go public. Now, she's at a crucial point in her career and can't go public. It's fate. She just won a Magnolia, and everyone is trying to tear her down. So Ethan stepped in to protect her. Their love is so restrained and beautiful. I am obsessed. This is a real-life fairy tale. The ex-husband leaving is the best thing that could have happened to them. And just like that, The star-crossed lovers narrative was back in full force. But a more skeptical group started putting together a detailed timeline. "It's weird," one user noted. "Her ex-husband seems to have disappeared right around the time she and Ethan reconnected. That anonymous source is probably Ava herself, right? What is she doing, starting a public countdown to the end of her own marriage?" The comment included a screenshot from a burner account that had been posting a countdown to freedom, ticking off the days until its liberation. A fan shot back, "That was a countdown to the Magnolia Awards, you idiots." But another user immediately replied, "I can tell you with 100% certainty that the date on the divorce agreement was the exact same day as the awards. Don't ask me how I know. I was at the county clerk's office that day. I was there getting my own divorce finalized and saw them coming together. Small world. And, I think her ex-husband looks a lot like her old manager. I went back and looked at some old press photos. The resemblance is uncanny." That comment blew up the entire thread. Someone quickly put it all together. It's obvious. Ava was cheating. She was seeing Ethan while still married, then tried to force her husband into a divorce. When he wouldn't sign, she framed him for blackmail to get what she wanted. Then, after she got her way, she posted that clarification video to make herself look magnanimous. The tide of public opinion turned against Ava in an instant. But she had bigger problems to deal with. The executives at the luxury brand heard the news of her secret marriage and affair and immediately suspended the entire evaluation process. On the verge of a complete breakdown, Ava ran to David, crying, "David, please help me. What do I do?" David's face was a mask of impatience. He shot her a cold look. "What do you think you can do? I'll arrange a meeting. You will go, you will apologize to the head of their APAC division, and you will be humble. Do you understand me?" "I understand." Forgetting her public persona, Ava wiped away her tears and nodded frantically. She even managed to force a pathetic, pleading smile. "I'll cooperate." David pulled every string he could and finally got in touch with the assistant to Starlight's new majority shareholder. The assistant passed along the request, and the new shareholder sent back a short reply. A meeting could be arranged. The meeting was set for the top-floor conference room in the building across from the Starlight offices. Ava and David arrived early, sitting in tense silence, waiting for the APAC president of the luxury brand to arrive. At the appointed time, the door opened. They both shot to their feet. Ava nervously smoothed her dress, and I walked in, wearing a tailored suit. They both stood frozen for a long moment. "G Gems," David stammered, his face a mask of shock and regret. "You work for the brand now." He looked me up and down, as if seeing me for the first time. I ignored him and walked directly to Ava. I smiled. "I told you before. The prerequisite for this deal is that the ambassador must be single. So, Ms. Monroe, are you single now?" Ava was speechless, completely frozen. A moment later, my assistant walked in and addressed me respectfully. "Mr. Anderson." The name hit David like a physical blow. He stared at me, his mind finally catching up. You're the new majority shareholder of Starlight." His voice trembled as he fumbled for his phone and pulled up Starlight's latest press release. And there it was at the very top of the official document, my name and my new title. I took the seat at the head of the table. "Yes," I said calmly. "That's me." David still couldn't process it. "Then you're also the APAC president of a luxury brand?" "I am." He slumped back into his chair, completely defeated. Ava was in total shock. She couldn't comprehend how the lowly manager who used to run errands for her, the man who had endured so much humiliation on her behalf, had suddenly become the majority shareholder of Starlight Media Group and the APAC president of a global luxury brand. How her ex-husband had amassed so much power so quickly. Her voice trembled. "You lied to me." Her eyes were red, tears welling. I shrugged. "How did I lie? These are all very recent appointments." I paused, then asked again slowly, "So, are you single now?" I already knew all about her secret affair with Ethan, thanks to the system. What I could never forgive was her cheating and the elaborate scheme she had concocted to force me into a divorce. Ava finally snapped. "What does it matter to you if I'm single or not?" she screamed. I shrugged, feigning indifference. It matters a great deal. If Ms. Monroe is not single, then this brand deal is off the table. If she is, perhaps the board might be willing to reconsider. David, finally grasping the situation, jumped in. Of course she's single. She just divorced you. She's single. I shrugged again, looking at him with a touch of pity. He still had no idea how thoroughly he'd been played. He didn't know that while Ava was using him as a pawn to sever her ties with me, she was already back with Ethan. I took out my phone, opened Twitter, and handed it to him. David, why don't you take a look at the statement Ethan just released? Ethan was never a man Ava could control. When she was a nobody, he had dropped her without a second thought for the sake of his career. Now that she was a famous actress, he was more than willing to latch onto her, no matter the cost, to secure his connection to her value. When Ava had decided to betray Starlight and clear my name, a confused Ethan had been dragged down with them. In the fast-moving world of Hollywood, the scandal had cost the already fading star several major endorsements. David had been forced to personally appease Ethan and his manager, promising future resources and PR campaigns to make up for the damage. But Ethan had always valued immediate gain over future promises. So, he decided to lean into it. He retweeted the post about their college romance and openly admitted they had dated. He attached a long, sentimental essay, painting himself as the devoted lover who had been silently waiting all these years for her to be single again. He ended the post with a public declaration of love for Ava. Whether you ever marry me or not, I will always be the one who loves you most. How ironic, I said, scrolling to the bottom of the post and showing the screen to Ava. After all these years, you still chose him. I guess you've forgotten all those nights you spent crying and cursing his name. I paused for a beat. Since Ms. Monroe is clearly not single, this partnership is terminated. I turned to my assistant. Also, please deliver the new corporate restructuring plan to David's office and inform him that Ms. Monroe's studio will no longer be affiliated with Starlight Media. A company that repeatedly exploited your personal relationship for publicity is not one you should be associated with. See to it. Ava finally snapped back to reality. She shot to her feet, pointing a trembling finger. You hid marital assets. I can sue you for everything you have. I shrugged. Be my guest, but you seem to be forgetting, Ms. Monroe, that your own lawyer did a full audit of my assets before the divorce. If you want to sue, I'm more than happy to go to court. But are you sure you can handle another media firestorm? The secret marriage, the affair, the false blackmail accusations. I have proof of everything. If I wanted to, I could ensure you never work with me. Months later, after a series of setbacks, Ava finally signed a contract with Ethan's agency. From then on, they were officially marketed as a couple, appearing together in films and reality shows, giving their dedicated shippers plenty of content. But most of her rational fans have long since moved on. The only ones left were those who were completely invested in her true love. But I knew the truth. She was miserable. Her dream had once been to conquer the world, to win every major award. Now, she was just Ethan's sidekick, packaged with him as a couple deal for various low-tier projects. Ethan had never forgiven her for choosing her career over him. Now he held her affair as leverage over her. All of her projects, all of her resources were tied to her. She had no chance of solo career. Even her income was split with him. Meanwhile, thanks to the capital I had accumulated with my golden flash, I was living a life of complete financial freedom. Sometime after the mission was complete, the system's interface appeared before me. Why didn't you use your power to torture them? It asked. The golden touch isn't all powerful, I replied. What's truly terrifying is human nature. I only use my power to elevate my own position and accumulate wealth. The revenge was accomplished entirely through exploiting their own flawed natures. Ava sealed her own fate the moment she betrayed our marriage. Her own greed dragged her into the abyss. Without me, she had no true friends, no one who genuinely loved her, and no one to protect her from the industry's dark side. And Ethan, the man she once saw as her savior, will now be her curse for the rest of her life. The system asked, And what about Ethan? He's still making a fortune. What's your plan for him? I smiled. I'm in no hurry. Let him make a little more money. When the time is right, I have a carefully prepared gift for him, a federal tax evasion investigation. And given how closely their finances are now tied, when he goes down, she'll go down. On that day, they will both be blacklisted for tax fraud, and they will fall from grace together. They will be left with nothing but each other to resent and torment for the rest of their lives. The system's voice was tinged with something like admiration. You are truly ruthless. It seems I chose the right candidate. I replied coolly. If I weren't, I never would have completed the mission to survive the final test. This wasn't easy. All your other candidates failed at this stage, didn't they? The system seemed to chuckle. Yes, they all failed the final test of humanity. They were too naive. It showed no embarrassment at being found out, only a sense of pride in its design. Not every story has a happy ending. More often, people are just broken by the cruel trials of human nature. The system's final message is here. Congratulations, host. You have completed the main mission, the test of humanity. Please choose, leave or stay. The heart of this story isn't the thrill of revenge, but the self-awakening that follows letting go. The true golden touch isn't some supernatural gift. It's the unwavering resolve to choose yourself after seeing human nature for what it is. When your efforts are taken for granted, remember, you define your own life. May you walk away and become your own light.